Breeze, breeze, breeze. Literally the newest map for Valorant, and as you haven't seen before, either from my video or anyone else's video, this map is huge. So a Sentinel well, Killjoy is just not going to be too good because the ult is too small for this map, and it's just not going to be able to cover a lot. Sage will have its own niche in this map, but I think the best Sentinel to play this map is basically Cypher, because your cam is going to be more useful to be able to see where the enemy team is, to play retake, to play defensive and get those picks, whatever it might be. So in this video, we're going to be looking at 8 camera setups that you can use either in A or B or even mid to be able to defend this site. Let's get started. Now the first thing we're going to look at is actually how to play on A site with his cam and setups, because I think it's easier to defend A site with Cypher just because there is less kind of angles that people can run around and hide in, and it's a bit more open space. So as long as you place your camera at a well placed spot, essentially you can see the whole site, and basically rule out different angles that you shouldn't have to worry about while you're watching your camera. So the very first thing that I will always 100% use in this site is you have to stand right over here and essentially put the camera right over here. You're gonna jump on the edge of this and then essentially put it at that corner, and essentially you can see the front of site, the whole site right over here on the left side, the front of site where people will probably normally plant a default. Still don't know, that's still early kind of stages of the game, but essentially you can even see the front of kind of the right side of the entrance. So this is literally the best cam you can use to kind of watch over the whole site and even play retake. And I mean, this is literally what you use to just give A and then hold mid and play retake with this camera. It's really hard to see because it's going to be on top and everybody's always going to be pushing and looking in the front. Now the second camera spot for A side is essentially doing the same thing that we had for the first camera, but it's just going to be on the left side and it's a bit more sneaky. You're essentially going to be putting it right here somewhere hidden behind these leaves, and it's going to be overlooking kind of the front of the site. Essentially, you're not going to be able to see most of the back sight, so this is just another way to be able to kind of eliminate angles in the front so that you can retake the back. But this is just a little bit more sneaky, and it also watches mostly the front, right? So you don't have to worry about kind of just anybody just bursting in there. You can see a little bit of the front so that they don't just kind of catch you off guard. It's also good for, I'm pretty sure these are going to be the default plant spots, so you should be able to see anybody kind of holding close to the bomb. Now the third camera is essentially going to be also watching the front of site. It's going to be neglecting this side, so if you do use this, make sure you're still watching the door from mid or kind of mid A right over here by the switches. All you got to do is essentially run up here, jump forward, and then you're going to put the camera exactly on top of the entrance of A site. So jump up, and then essentially it's going to sit up right here. If you do it even better, it's going to be actually all the way right here, so it's even harder to see when people are like looking up to try and kill it. But essentially, well, it's going to be watching the whole site. You can look down to see whoever is going to be trying to push up here, anybody in this corner, watching default plant right over here, and then essentially you have an overlook or overview of the whole A site. This is one of the more sneakier one because no one's ever going to be looking right on top of them. So these cameras work, but this is also one that if you could pull off is great for watching essentially the whole A site. Now the last camera we're going to show you for A is essentially a camera you're going to put after you've demoralized the other team and they've decided A is just not the site to take because your cameras are just all over the place. This is for kind of to prevent anybody from just being able to rotate and sneak a plant from A. So if you know that this whole thing is clear, all you got to do is essentially put a camera right over here, jumping it up as far as you can, and then now it's right there, and then you can essentially see anybody that's going to be rotating from the A spawn towards A site. This is just essentially to make sure that you have control of A so that your teammates are focused more on playing mid and kind of maybe mid hallway right over here, and then you're essentially holding down A side, making sure that you're taking in information like, hey, no one's trying to push or slow push from A main, and not take that. While I prefer you to play Cypher in A, it's still possible to essentially hold site with Cypher. It's just that I don't like this whole scheme right over here. You can basically ring around the rosy with every single player that you're defending or going against in this area, so it's kind of hard to maximize the potential of your camera when dealing with your tower right over here, and then this wall right over here. There's too many angles that can obscure vision, and you don't really get as much benefit for playing Cypher on the B side, at least in my opinion. But if you are playing Cypher, the first cam that you should know is always when watching kind of the entrance of sight. So you're going to be on top of this wall right over here, and all you got to do essentially is jump up and then place the camera right over there. I forgot the camera, so we're going to get that, and then let's throw the camera. Now that we have the camera back, we go back to the original position. You're essentially going to put the camera on top of these arches right over here. You just have to jump up and then put it up. The idea is that when you're putting up here, when they're pushing you from here, or anybody's watching from kind of this window right over here, when you check the cam, the idea is that you're holding this cam essentially forever to make sure that no one's just sneaking in or lurking to B site. And when they kind of hear that camera pop off for some reason, because you go off it, they can't just shoot it from here. They actually have to essentially go up here in front and then look up and then actually see the camera, right? Because sometimes you might put the camera right over here where it's hanging on the edge, so it's, you know, it's more visible and easy to see. But essentially this camera right here is to essentially hold sight, and then you can see where they're going to be planting, right? You see the whole front side here in this corner, this whole front side, and then you only have to worry about kind of these corners right over here. If you want to be more proactive, there's a camera that you can put like right over here, essentially sit right here, and then essentially watch the entrance, right? So as enemy team is pouring in and they're gonna push here, the first thing they're gonna see is this camera. It's easy to see as you turn left that there's a camera watching here. But the thing is, if they see that camera, first instinct is to shoot that camera. So this is essentially what you would do is when, you know, the second they kind of swing out here and see the camera, shoot it, and then you can swing, try to take as much, take as many enemy teams as you can, and then essentially move back to sight. This is more a proactive camera. I wouldn't use this unless you're at an OT 13-12 and you want to pull something cheesy to get some picks to be able to kind of have those impact frags. But it's there, and maybe sometimes the enemy team just don't see it for some reason, and that camera will work for a retake. But this is for the purposes of making plays so that you're baiting your camera to be able to get a kill. Now this camera setup is more for mid presence, for your information gathering for your camera, so your B side is going to be exposed, but as soon as the wall comes down, make sure to put a cage right over here so you block that line of sight. If your teammate is helping you out, then you don't have to waste a cage, but essentially this camera is going to be watching the top of mid to make sure that no one's going to be pushing into heaven or to tunnel towards B. That's kind of just one of the cameras that you can use to watch over mid site. If you want to be more adventurous before the wall comes down, you can ping kind of this area right over here where you want to put it. As soon as the wall comes down, throw a cage, and then you just push your cage and then find that ping that you had, and all you got to do is throw it out now. And then once you throw it, and then you just have to run back, make sure nobody kind of essentially gets a pick off you, and then you now have a camera off mid, and then use the camera 30 seconds 40 seconds into the game once it starts, and you can basically get a quick peek whoever's mid, and then you can have that information. The kind of downside is that the second you do this and someone is playing here, if they don't find it, they will obviously awesome, but if they do, well, now you have to wait 45 seconds to be able to use another camera. Now the last camera that I'm going to show you is obvious if no one is willing to push your site and you essentially have the B side of the map clear. You should always be pushing out and taking map control. You can leave a camera kind of right on top of a window to make sure that anybody rotating out to go back to B, you can see them kind of go here, and then you're not caught off guard. If you want to be able to be more sneaky so that you can hear the rotates much earlier, you can jump up and then put the essentially camera right over here because it's harder to see. No one's going to be peeking up behind here, and if you trigger that camera, essentially you can hear any footsteps from right over here, even from mid. So essentially you're getting a lot of information for potential rotates back to your site if they don't initially push your site in the first place. Well, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you guys find some new setups for the cameras. The map is still new, and I think sentinels like Sage need to be at a specific spot to be able to defend A or B or mid. I think Killjoy is not as useful on this site because the ult is going to be honestly useless because the map is too big. So I think Cypher is the best pick for playing you know, a sentinel on the map Breeze on defender side, just because you can utilize your cam as long as you place it in a proper area to be able to look at a very big space to get the information, to be able to play retake, to get picks, and just essentially do anything that you're supposed to do as a Cypher to get information, to get advantage for your team or for yourself. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys learned something, and again, if you did and if you liked it, please click that red subscribe button. We're at 916, 917. We're really kind of speeding up the upload and the subs so far, so I'm kind of excited. Again, we want to hit that 1K viewer or 1K subscriber count, so thank you so much for helping out, and again, I'll see you in the next guide. Have a good one.
Yeah. Let's go, Kevin. Good job.
That was pretty clean.